Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our conversation around technology shaping the future of manufacturing, led by ERP and our MES and APS options as well. So very, very excited to have everybody here today. My name is Tim Watkins. I'm the Vice President of Integrated Solutions at ECI. Joining me is Mark Gregory. But before we get into firm introductions, I want to go over a little bit of housekeeping. So reminder, you are by default on mute. You should see the GoToWebinar control panel on your left. You're able to drive into and ask any questions. We'll have a Q&A at the very end of the conversation. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the conversation that we have today. So as I mentioned, today we're going to be talking about a few different topics. Number one, ERP and manufacturing and what we're seeing from an ECI perspective in the discrete manufacturing process of how ERP is really fitting into it. Next, we're going to be talking a little bit about APS and MES, two new exciting solutions that we have for a lot of our ECI products and some of the benefits that you can drive from that. And then finally, touching on the buzzword of the day, of the year, of the decade, if you will, so far, future trends in AI and kind of what we're seeing from our side as well as the Link side of how AI is impacting and helping manufacturing organizations that we're talking to on a day-to-day basis. But as I mentioned, my name is Tim Watkins. I'm the Vice President of Integrated Solutions here at ECI. I've been with the company for 7 years, working with the sales team, working with integrations, working with development, the product team to kind of outline what the future of our ECI products are. Alongside me is Mark Gregory, the CEO of Link. Mark, would you like to take a minute to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good morning to everybody, and thanks for that introduction, Tim. So, Mark Gregory, I've been CEO of a company called Link. We're a manufacturing operations management provider. We'll get into what we do in terms of providing advanced planning and scheduling and MES solutions. But background-wise, prior to my time as CEO, I've been in manufacturing, so I've been where you guys are as well. So I've worked from an industrial equipment manufacturer as well, electronics manufacturer, medical device and diagnostics. So I kind of have a bit of a broad spectrum across both discrete and process-based manufacturing. And hopefully I can share some insights into my history and what we can provide together in partnership with ECI to give you that breadth and depth in manufacturing that you will probably be looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mark, and definitely looking forward to what you have to say to our group here today. So as somebody, and I've spent probably about 15, 20 years in manufacturing myself, working as a manufacturing sales rep, positioning logistics and warehousing solutions, as well as software, and being able to provide manufacturing organizations with a new future. What does good look like? What does great look like in terms of 3, 5, and 10-year growth of software and technology really driving and resetting the foundation of organizations? And that's really what we're talking a lot about today, is kind of resetting the foundation of organizations. But before we get there, I want to ask a quick question of the group here. So you're going to see a poll show up in the GoToWebinar panel of what are some of the key trends that are impacting you. Some of the things that we see from our side range from, increasing customer demands and really the lack of transparency around that, stricter regulations, supply chain disruptions, rising costs, and some of those disconnected systems that we're definitely going to be talking about today. So take a look at that, answer some of those. Let's see, what is really driving that for you guys? So think about that as we walk through the presentation today. One of the things that we've noticed as an organization is really, to me, that last one, disconnected systems, is really an issue that is touching on all the ones that we had mentioned prior, because you're not able to get the answers and drive into the visibility that you need because you have a bunch of different systems and silos of information really running and managing your business. As I usually like to say to companies that are interested in an ERP journey, everybody comes to a pivot point where they have to decide on, do I invest in technology to really gather the information, put everybody on the same page when it comes to my business, or, and it's a viable option for a lot of companies, do I just hire more people, do more data entry, and have more meetings? Eventually, the more meetings and the more headcount becomes a problem. So where are you at in your customer journey really dictates how you want to be growing. But those disconnected systems are costing your business in a lot of ways that you may or may not be thinking of. Production efficiencies, inventory inaccuracies, processing order issues and errors, manual errors, lost and late deliveries, manual data costs, and just poor decision making from bad data. So in our experience, of what we've seen is just for a standard $10 million discrete manufacturer, job shop, some repetitive manufacturing, the lack of an integrated solution is something that brings all of your company and all of your data and all of the questions and answers that you're driving into. It can cost you as little as $400,000 to over $1 million per year. And that's an extremely scary number for a lot of companies, especially because this is what ERP and technology is supposed to drive into, and really not completely remove, but help you mitigate the risk of that, increasing your efficiencies, letting you leverage more of the valuable resources that you guys are leveraging day in and day out. I talked to a lot of manufacturers. I was actually at an event 2 weeks ago here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, where we probably had 40 to 50 organizations and CEOs of manufacturing entities, and really the conversation around tariffs, the conversations around material purchasing and what to do short term, but also more importantly, what is the long-term bandwidth and resource availability that we have, and how can we best leverage the resources that we do have from a machine time, from a tool and die time, but also from a employee and human time as well. So really being able to understand the efficiencies. Am I driving the right answers to the questions that I have that are really bothering me, that are not allowing me to take the next step with my organization? So think about this as we walk through the path of what are some of these out of these 6 buckets? Are there 1, 2, or even unfortunately all 6 that you guys are struggling with? This is an area where technology, and especially within ERP, can be able to help drive true improvements. And how we do that is we combat a lot of these challenges with data. As you see here on the right, the ERP is the hub, and this spoke type of model of how am I bringing everything together to be able to get a full 360-degree view of what my solution is. If I'm scouting, I'm not going to the shortest tree, I'm going to the tallest tree with a 360-degree view of what's happening in the area if I'm lost in the forest. So many companies that we deal with feel like they're lost in the forest and they're standing on the rock and they can't see anywhere. We want to put you on the tallest tree, put you on the top, get you a nice comfy seat and chair to be able to get that 360-degree view of your business and the industry as a whole. So what does that mean? It allows you to gain insights. It allows you to see accurate data, to be able to identify real-time issues and inefficiencies and variances. So many companies that I talk to, their idea of profitability is my bank account's bigger at the end of the month than it was at the beginning of the month. Well, that's good. That's great. That's a nice starting point from a 30,000 foot view. But what do you think is actually driving that growth? Being able to look at it by a line, production line, being able to look at it by customer, being able to look at it by job. What are the jobs, the customers, the product lines that are making you money, and what are the ones that you're breaking even or losing money? Does it make sense to walk away from those? Those are tough gut call questions for a lot of companies that aren't leveraging an ERP on a day-to-day basis. ERP allows you to do that from a holistic and scientific standpoint rather than saying, I don't like this customer, I don't think we're making money here. How can you schedule those jobs? So if I know I'm profitable and I'm prioritizing a line because that's where my revenue is coming from, that's where my margin is coming from, how I'm allocating and identifying resources and investment into that is going to prioritize it. How are you making those decisions? If I got 2 machines down, which one am I going to fix first if I only have finite resources? If I have 2 machines that I need to run and I don't have enough people to run one of those, which machine am I going to choose to run? How are you leveraging data to plan for that, to understand the decisions that you're making and the impacts that it's having as an organization? And using historical jobs and quotes and information to be able to drive your future acquisition. So using your history to guide your future. A lot of the times we're dealing with organizations that are maybe a CEO or production manager or general manager that has the keys to the kingdom. Everything's in their head. They can back of the napkin any quote. What happens if they take a day off? What happens if they retire? How are you leveraging technology and data to be able to drive a consistent and predictable future? A lot of that future is related to Industry 4.0. I always loved Industry 4.0 when I was a sales rep because it was a big word. There was lots of talk tracks on it, lots of webinars on it. I could always find information about it. But for a lot of the cases, a lot of our small to medium manufacturers that we deal with as a whole, Industry 4.0 is simply just a buzzword. But there are pieces of this that are incredibly valuable for you to be focusing on. And some of the tools that the Link team has, as well as some of the things that AI is doing that we'll talk a little bit about later, allows Industry 4.0 to be more achievable and attainable for a $5 to $10 million job shop, for a $15 to $20 million repetitive manufacturer. You weren't getting into augmented reality and cloud computing and the Internet of Things, IoT and simulations. That wasn't possible 5, 6, 10 years ago. Now it absolutely is. And these are some of the tools that ECI and I know Link is driving to be able to provide an Industry 4.0 experience for a $5 to $10 million organization, something that, 10 years ago, you had to be 10 to 20x that to be able to drive value in that area. So ECI as a whole, what we really do to stand out in the marketplace is a true purpose-built manufacturing solution. So we have our M1 product and our Job Boss Squared product, but that's something that I talk to in a lot of groups and a lot of committees and a lot of webinars like this, is there's lots of ERPs out there. I personally believe, though self-biased with the ECI on my shirt, that the ECI path to what a focused and purpose-built solution for your industry and your type of business is what you should be focusing on. That's what good looks like. And that's what ECI provides an organization. Going from order entry, supply management, to MRP and production, to cost analysis and routings and business intelligence and product configuration with additional applications that allow you to really round out the edges to really fit your organization. How are you gathering information to answer the questions that you're not able to answer today? MES and APS are key aspects of what good to great looks like with a true manufacturing ERP solution. Being able to drive into a additional level of detail, an additional layer of data that a standard ERP won't be able to gather. So being able to utilize MES and APS to get that cherry on top of the data, if you will, to be able to make the best type of business decisions. So that's a little bit of my pitch. I'll throw it over to Mark to kind of add that cherry, talk about how MES and APS can really take you from good to great and help you make better decisions for your organization.
Thanks, Tim. Very well said, I think, on the introduction on that, in terms of ERP being certainly your financial hub and then providing you that visibility across your entire organization. And that's absolutely necessary. In order to facilitate that, you also need that breadth and depth where you can get down into the devil, into the detail, to, for example, connect your machines, connect the resources that you have on the factory floor, and bring that financial information and lift that up so you've got those actionable insights up at your ERP level. And I think from our perspective, again, I mentioned it several times now, but I think it's unusual. And what you want from an ERP provider is you need to have that breadth and depth. So you know that you're not just staying up at a high level, but you can go right down to the factory floor, talking about some of the things that Tim just mentioned there in Industry 4. And in fact, we're even talking about Industry 5 because things move so quickly, because you've got AI and other things that we have at the back end of this presentation, which is now in this world of Industry 5. It almost seems like this unachievable, digit that no manufacturer can ever get to, but it really is achievable. Things like, for example, IoT. So we provide solutions to be able to automatically connect to resources, for example, and bring that data from the machine, from the device. Might be a temperature device, it might be spindle speed, it might be something very specific that you want to capture the data automatically from. You can get there. But the bottom line is, while you're looking at the 400,000 to 1 million in terms of wasted, let's say, inefficiencies in the organization through order processing and various other areas, you also can look at it from a resource management point of view. So by that I mean, look at the end of the day, you're a manufacturer, so you've got employees and you've got equipment. And those employees and those equipment that you have, you have an hourly rate, probably somewhere between 35 US dollars an hour to 65 US dollars an hour would be typical across, let's say, operators and machines that you would have. So just imagine, getting sort of a 5% efficiency gain out of your employees or out of your machinery. So you're getting that incentive. And customers that we serve, and there's about 65,000 active users on our applications that we serve. They're seeing anywhere between a 5 and 30% gain in their efficiency at $35 an hour every day, every week, every month, every year. You are talking, serious sort of, into the hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in efficiency gains, which is helping you to become a more digital organization, which for me, and I've been there, whether it be as a production manager, as a manufacturing director, as a director of supply chain, as a CIO, I'm trying to create this kind of dial effect on the organization. When things change, as they inevitably will, through pandemics or demand or seasonality or the rest of it, I need to be able to react, and the business needs to be able to react quickly to that situation. And while bringing more people into the organization is certainly one way, that does stifle you to be able to act efficiently when, let's say, demand drops off or it spikes or it increases very quickly. So what you want to try to do is you want to try and systemize as much as you can, because hiring or laying off, for example, people, that's a very time-consuming process. It can't be done overnight. It takes weeks, months, sometimes to do that. And as economies change and environments change, that becomes ever more difficult. So the bottom line is, getting the most out of the resources that you have, looking at it from efficiency. So here we're talking about reduced cycle time, so ways that we've talked about connecting your machines, digitalizing your shop floor, looking at ways that through a combination of scheduling solutions and execution solutions that you can really maximize the output from the factory. So you're getting more out of the resources, which means I get more out of my factory within the same time period with the same resources that I have. And then if I'm a job shop, for example, understanding my margin and profitability on a job is absolutely crucial. So being able to identify, visualize, eliminate, understand where my inefficiencies are, tracking my actual times, and then eliminating any waste that may be in my current process is absolutely vital to the sheer existence of my organization from a job shop point of view. If I move into sort of batch production and production line, it's no less important. I'm chopping and changing from one product to the next. I need to understand what my process is, where I'm losing time, where my downtime is, and how I can work to kind of eliminate that. And we kind of support that efficiencies and visibility and insights that, that just extend and enrich what you've already got within your ECI package, your ERP side. Tim's driving the slides here, so if I can ask next slide here, and we'll continue. There we go. So while this may be a model that some in the audience are familiar with, but this has been long talked about. You've got a kind of system architecture, if you like, and it's looked at in four kind of levels. And at that top kind of level, you've got business planning and administration level, which is what your ERP system is doing. And often organizations, you might be stuck there because you don't get that breadth and depth where you can actually then drive down. And if you just click on next, Tim, there, drive down and connect your ERP system to your factory floor, to your operators, to your machines, to your sensors, to your other controls that are sitting there on the factory floor, the assets that you've invested in. And that bridge and that gap is filled by manufacturing operations management, which is a combination of advanced planning and scheduling, and then execution, which is at that kind of level 3 tier. And it is just a crucial connection that really brings all of your business together so that you can lift all that data, which is flowing around your business right now, and bring that and surface that at your ERP level so you can do something about it and you can take some decisions there. Next slide, please, Tim. So this is an illustration, and I'd be clicking through this, but this is just a simple illustration to understand where that resource effectiveness can be gained. And the old adage of, you have to measure it. You can't measure something, you can't improve it, or you can't manage that. No more key with this. I had these conversations with many people, and you can kind of understand where it is. But if you take a typical 24-hour day, so you as a business, you'll make a decision to say, I'm going to run one shift, I'm going to run two shifts, I'm going to run my environment 24/7. If at any point you say, well, I'm not running it 24/7, then the financial teams, the CFOs, the finance directors, they're making a decision there. That's capacity that's available to you. But we've made a decision that it's not economically viable for us to run those shifts. We don't want to do that. So let's say we've got a 4-hour, we class it as a loss, inverted commas, that you'd see in that 24-hour day. The next bar that you're looking at there is loading loss. So the comments there, things like idle time, setups, teardowns, cleaning, maintenance. This is all planned downtime. So these are things that you plan into your schedule that you're aware of, that obviously you want to try to minimize, but it's seen in a different way. So we look at that as planned downtime. Next, you want to look at the unplanned downtime, things that are beyond your control. So how stable is your environment? Are you getting equipment and assets breaking down all the time? Are you having tooling failures? Are your operators missing documentation, materials? All of which is causing you further hourly loss. Don't forget, every hour in here, $35 to $65 an hour. So you're looking at unplanned downtime. Then there's a metric that is for performance. So this is, again, those where you build your bill of materials and you build your routings. And within those routings, it says I should be producing 100 of these products within an hour. What you want to measure is, am I producing 100 products in an hour, or is it 90 products in an hour? And if it's 90 products within an hour, why have I lost? Why am I not producing the 100 that I have costed in my routing? That is the basis for my margin and profitability on my company, from a product margin point of view. Why am I not performing to that? Or maybe I'm performing above that, in which, maybe there's an opportunity to, sharpen your margins, maybe reduce your pricing, maybe take more market share at that point from a performance point of view. Last but not least, then you will look at, and next little click there, Tim, will show sort of a quality loss. So at the end of the day, 100 products in an hour, but did I produce 100 good products in that hour? That's all important. If I only produced 98, why did I end up scrapping 2, and how much has that cost me? So this is sort of illustration. It starts at 24 hours and it says, well, actually, you only had 10 hours effective. And you can then categorize your loss through those different metrics, planned downtime, availability, performance, quality. And that gives you the starting point to go and attack those losses and eliminate them. And if you just click on again, Tim, there, it's just really just to crystallize the fact that, this is, if I've got 50 machines, or I've got 100 operators in my factory, I've got 150 resources costing me, let's say, on average, $35 an hour. And this is running through all of those 150 resources every day of every year. And it really adds up into a significant efficiency loss, but is your opportunity to be able to eliminate those and really improve how you drive profitability forward in your factory, in your business. Next slide, please, Tim. So we look at this from a manufacturing operations management. On the screen is an illustration of what is a generic activity model for manufacturing operations. That means it goes across industries. So it could be across different production environments, whether they be job shop or batch production or production line, but whether they're in industrial equipment, as I've just talked about. I'm a metal fabricator, for example. I'm in electronics, whatever industry, this model still stands. Even if I'm a food and beverage, process manufacturing, it still applies. Talking about what you're seeing here and what is provided by ECI, APS, and MES solutions is in the APS side, you've got a combination of resource management. So how do I look after my resources? How do I define my employees, my equipment, for example, and define the capacity of that? Definition management then is looking at my bill of materials and my routings and how I produce something. Detailed scheduling then is how I then, look at my demand and how do I schedule that efficiently against those resources and dispatch that to the shop floor. So that's all tied up in the ECI APS. And then if you think of the ECI MES application as an extension of that, is once I've dispatched it to the shop floor, how do I then control that through execution management? How do I control operation to operation, making sure that I don't start operation 30 before I've started operation or finished operation 20, for example, in the very simplest form. How do I collect my data against that? How do I pick it from my operators? I don't want to be using timesheets because they're inaccurate. I need more real-time, more accurate analysis from my operators. How do I take that data from the machines? Can I take it directly from the machines? Because I know that my machines are doing something all the time. Why can't I take that directly from that? And it's that data collection that gives me the tracking information so that I know where my jobs are at any point in time, what every employee is doing in the business or operator is doing, what every machine is running. And ultimately, then that yields performance analysis that says, am I running my factory today better this month than I did last month, or this quarter, last quarter, this year versus last year? And then where is the loss within that, and how do I tackle that loss, and what did I go after? So this really is the roadmap, right, for getting into the detail from a manufacturing point of view and lifting that information into your ERP system. Next slide, Tim. So if we break that out, so we're going to look in, and again, just one more click, we're just going to look into the detailed scheduling aspects of this. So the APS on its own is a combination of the resource management definition, detailed scheduling and dispatching. But the detailed scheduling area is providing you these tools, which are a real deep capability in terms of visual scheduling. And we'll talk about some of the challenges in just a second, but this ability to be able to see what's going on your factory floor. Capacity planning, so these are finite capacity tools. This is not based on infinite capacity that's unrealistic. This is you taking the number of operators, the number of machines, the skill sets of your operators, the capabilities of your machines. Can I run a product on this machine faster than I can on another machine because it's older, for example, and being able to put that into proper capacity planning and scheduling, and then providing you the dashboards and reports to allow you to be able to do the analysis and drive an efficient plan, first of all. So you've got an efficient production plan that maximizes your output. Next slide, please. So some of the scheduling challenges, which I'm sure will resonate with all of you from an audience point of view. First thing is you're not dealing often with one constraint. You're not dealing with, I just need to make sure my machines are available. It's often a combination is my machine available? And do I have an operator in order to be able to set up that machine? And is that operator trained on the right skill set to be able to set up that machine at that time when I need them to? And perhaps we can throw in another constraint to say, and is the tool available that I need to go on that machine with the operator at that time? So what you have is a very, to get a scheduling solution that truly works and truly delivers for you, first and foremost, it must be able to deal with multiple constraints. Other things, we won't go through all of these, but this ability to be able to deal with custom orders, for example. How do I take my run-of-the-mill products that I produce and then produce a custom order that's got a specific drawing that I need to manufacture against that? How do I prioritize the rest of the orders? How can I take in that customer order and schedule that? More importantly, how do I provide the customer with a capable to promise date of when I can deliver that custom order against the backdrop of all my other orders, so that everything doesn't go out the window. So being able to handle that. And then of course things like, how do I manage my different shifts, the different skill sets on different shifts, the availability of my staff, the skill sets of my staff and my team, my operators, the flexibility of different lines. I've got raw materials that I expect to turn up by a certain date and then they don't turn up by a certain date. How do I adjust the plan? How do I manipulate that? You can see that it's just forever a growing kind of level of challenges that you face. So next slide, please, Tim. I think we'll skip through. I'm sure these are common challenges. So the first thing is that, when you're looking at scheduling, and you kind of look at it from different production environments. So if you're a job shop in the audience, then you're probably, keen on, first of all, understanding, how can I quickly give a capable to promise date to my customer that's on the phone now that wants to place this order, and we've provided a price for this, and I need to overlay this over my existing schedule to say, yes, we can deliver this on the 26th of May. And I know with confidence, based on my capacity plan, that I can do that. And so, from a job shop, that's the sort of challenge. From a batch production, slightly different, but from a scheduling point of view, you're probably looking at how can I minimize my downtime in terms of changeover from one product to the next product. And really, as a production planner, and where I've been as well and sat here, you've got two jobs to do. One is to manage your asset utilization, your equipment utilization that you've invested lots of money in, and also including your employees and your operators. And what you're trying to then do is maximize your order fulfillment. So you've got this demand coming in and you need to balance the two of those. So you need to be able to see that, understand that, and then maximize the output from the factory. Second thing, as we've already touched on as well, is managing these multiple constraints from machines, tools, materials, people, skill sets, you name it. It's almost endless number of constraints that you have. It's not just one constraint. You need to look at, we talked about continuous improvement, analyzing the loss, understanding your planned downtime. How do I reduce my idle time, my setup time, which is not producing anything? How do I minimize that? How do I maximize, my output again by minimizing my planned downtime? Changeover optimizations, etc. Capable to promise, we've talked about in meeting customer delivery requirements, improving your customer service and customer experience. You have all of that in the APS. That's what it's providing you with. If you combine the APS with the execution side of it that you saw in the diagram earlier, then you've got the option to then share and publish all those plans directly to the shop floor, execute those on mobile devices or tablets on the shop floor, not in a complicated Gantt chart that the operators will find difficult to understand, but in a very simple job list which says I must do this job first, this job next, this job afterwards, and this is the order I must do it in. No mistakes. You can control that from a production planning point of view, and you can drive plan adherence as a result of combining those two things together. Ultimately, you're trying to, reduce your work in progress, reduce your lead times, reduce that cost that's tied up in inventory, and get that to a finished good state, which you can sell, and you can then bring money into the company from. And again, if I'm in a batch or production line environment, I'm really looking, I'm in job shop as well, I'm really looking at my planned costs, my bill of material, my routing. What did I think we were going to manufacture this for against my actuals, and where was the variance, and how can I improve on those variances going forward next time into the future? So they're the benefits that you're getting out of the APS. Again, some of the features and the key points that you get with ECI APS is this configurable planning board. So think of this, prioritizing. If you need to do things in a particular order, in a particular color sequence, if that makes sense from a scheduling point of view, you can do that. You can apply labels, you can optimize how you schedule and prioritize the plan. You can handle all those multiple constraints that we've talked about. We can absolutely deal with this, not talking about single level bill of materials here now. You've got this multi-level complex parent-child relationship, And also in an upcoming release as well, if you have situations where it's a sort of many-to-many relationship as well, it may be that you're producing one product that gets split off and it actually goes into hundreds of different parents as well. You can deal with that level of complexity. Bottleneck scheduling, one of the aspects. You may have a CNC machine that you know is your bottleneck, so you want to be able to schedule around that machine first of all, and then schedule everything else that you're doing around all the other assets that you have in the organization, so that you maximize the plan. Other capabilities within that, things like resource consumption. You know, if it takes me, you know, let's say 2 hours with one resource to do something, if I put 2 resources, which I may be able to do on that particular job, I may be able to complete that in an hour. You need a scheduling solution that will shrink the time and say, I'm not planning for 2 hours now, I'm looking at it for 1 hour. And many other features in there that I'm just touching on a few things like time fencing, being able to lock a 4-week period, firm up that plan. You don't want anything to change within that time fence, for example, but anything outside of that you may be able to look at. And of course, a really important one actually is not just managing capacity, is being able to manage your capacity in combination with your material availability. You know, is my material, I can't schedule a job to be done if I haven't got the materials in time. So you need to be able to see both at the same time and balance that so that you can optimize the plan. So it's being able to manage all of those aspects. So there's a huge number of features within that provide the benefits that we've talked about. Tim, probably worth skipping on. So then we take the next step. We sort of touched on it. So you have your advanced planning and scheduling solution, and then you want to I want to extend this to a manufacturing execution system, which is a manufacturing operations management connected solution with everything involved. So exactly, Tim, next slide. So this is giving you this closed loop system where you've really got integrated then planning and production, and everything talks to each other. And it gives you this ability to not only plan, but also then to track, to automate. So you can connect your machines, you can connect your devices that you have. Most importantly, I think, is this inherent analysis that comes as soon as you start using the application, where you can see the losses and the possible opportunities and efficiency gains in the organization. And you can drill into that. These are, you know, these are identified, they're quantified, they're classified, right? So that it's not just a big bucket that you don't know where to go after. It says, I've got a performance loss and it's down to operator shortages, or availability loss is down to operator shortages because they continually miss documentation on jobs. And that is costing me, and there's financial analysis within that, that is costing me $10,000 a month. You know, I would like to go after that. I need to be able to look at that. You need to have those insights, that analysis to be able to do that. And it's getting wrapped in a platform that gives you, that really drives sort of a paperless shop floor, so you can do away with any documentation if you need to. Everything's run by tablet devices. As you'd expect, if a machine goes down, you've got a downtime alert that'll go to your smartphone, etc., collaborative messaging, a whole bunch of other features that you would have within the MES application. So what our customers see, so on one side, we had a customer in the last couple of years, actually, they went live with the solution. They saw a reduction in their inventory by $4 million within 6 months, $4 million within 6 months. And they continue to see that then, and they've taken that sort of reduction in inventory, which is on the right-hand side, and material costs that they have, they then captured aspects of being able to reduce their labor costs because they were that much more efficient. They actually saw an efficiency gain, and it all depends on your starting point, obviously, but they saw an efficiency gain of about 40% in their operators in terms of bringing that visibility. They saw a quality gain in terms of reducing their defects and errors. They saw this reduction in their inventory holding and material costs that they had. They saw this increase in output that would be typical from that because you're better scheduling and better managing the execution that you have. And ultimately, this leads to a happier customer and improved delivery performance, which the customer saw from that. And you could also, next slide, please. So just a couple of because I'm conscious of the time here, a couple of benefits then from the MES side, just to crystallize that. I think, again, if you're a job shop, you get this real-time production tracking, which means that operational things, whether it be how much labor, machine hours, status of a job, scrap quantity, material issue, material sheets, all of that information is being, passed back to your ERP solution in real time, or is near to anything real time. You're talking about a minute delay from something happening on the shop floor and then it appearing in your ERP solution. You've got some configurable data collection. So, for example, one of the aspects, we collect data through a workbench. Within, you may have operations, you may have operation 10, 20, 30. It may be that what you want is to bring greater quality control to particular operations by checkpoints, we'll call them. So there may be quality control checkpoints. It says, when I do this operation, I need to take this dimension, I need to measure this, and I need this dimension that I measure needs to be within a tolerance of X and Y, which you can set within the solution. So let's say it's between 40 mil and 60 mil, and you'll take that measurement and they'll enter 50, and then it will go green, and then you'll be passed on to the next step and you can continue. So for every operation that you define in your routing, you've up to 100 checkpoints or quality control checkpoints that you can take for every operation. It gives you enormous kind of quality control capability within your organization. Of course, we talked about automated machine data collection directly from your machine, which is collecting data if it's enabled, and we can help with that in terms of industrial drivers. It's a bit like printers, being able to connect to your machine, bring the data off your machine, surface that information directly within your software. You can do that. Loss analysis. How much is that, this identification, classification, quantification, but importantly, how much is it costing me, that loss, every month? And how do I go after that? How do I attack that? Obviously, how my employees are performing. You've almost got access to a leaderboard where you can see who are my best performing employees. And I know that sounds maybe scary from some manufacturers' point of view, and it may say, my operator's not going to like that. In fact, what you see is the opposite. They understand how they're being measured, and what they want to do is then start offering ideas back to management in terms of how do I improve the way that we produce something, because I understand now, what we're doing, and I can see how I'm being measured. From an equipment point of view, you can look at downtime, slow cycles, etc. Within that, but you get true OEE analysis. And again, just to mention that, if you've got operators that run, which is commonplace, multiple jobs, there's no limitation to say, well, they can only run one job at any one time. They could run 5 jobs at the same time, and we can proportionally split their time and cost that proportionally against the job. And ultimately then alerts, etc., which give you the, you can understand the downtime and what's that costing you as a business within the MES application. Thanks, Tim. I think we're close there now. So there's a lot in there. I appreciate a lot to take on board, but also I hope you take away that there's a huge amount of opportunity that's sitting there within the systems that ECI provides you that you can get into. Realistically, it's not, Industry 4 is not off in the distance that is unachievable. This is here right now, very achievable, and it's done within this kind of I road to synergy, road to operational excellence. I probably would add in there as well is, you start with your ERP. You can then, continue your APS journey to whatever depth you need. With almost, we can cover all eventualities in terms of scheduling, which is one aspect of that. Obviously, another aspect is you may say, I want to go further. Now I'm planning, I want to be able to track my information, gather my information directly from my machines, etc. I want to digitalize my environment. You can go deeper with step 3 from that. And ultimately, you're getting these insights, which really tells you the dollars that is being lost within the organization, and allows you as a management team, whether you're a CFO, CEO, manufacturing manager, production manager, supervisor, whatever it is, you've got that information to see what the business is losing, and you can go after that. And you will see a marked step, incremental ratchet effect improvement week by week, month by month. It gives you that analysis to go after. Tim.
Yeah, great stuff, Mark. Thank you so much, and I completely agree that road to synergy is absolutely critical, and it starts with that first step, traditionally the ERP step, creating again that new foundation, that new standard to build upon. And the best way to do that is through more information, more data, more connectivity, so you're making more educated decisions. And that's really what APS from a scheduling and planning standpoint allow you to do. And then MES just takes it to another level, another degree. One of the things that a lot of companies ask us about on the ERP side is obviously ERP has a lot of built-in scheduling and planning tools, but it only goes so far. Traditionally, most ERPs, especially in this place, are a single constraint type system. So if you're really struggling and juggling the machine time, the labor availability, the tooling and dying, some other type of resource that is really inhibiting your ability to say, I need to do this job and I have time to do this job, that's really, in my opinion, where an APS truly shines. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's a complementary solution, and as I said, if you have a simple, straightforward environment, you may not need
Mhm.
that breadth and depth. But if you have those sort of challenges, then it's worth a conversation.
Yeah, and those challenges could be identifying, do I have the material needed? An ERP directionally, we're able to do that, but APS allows you to take that next level and really truly tie it into your scheduling aspect to it. Are you be able to and identify proactively those bottlenecks that are happening or are to come? And APS will allow you to do that to a higher degree than most ERP scheduling systems. So there's a lot of little cherries on top, if you will, when it comes to the value that an APS would allow you to do. MES, I think, truly sells itself where it comes to being able to optimize and make your machines, make your labor, make your resources more efficient, and truly understand why your time isn't being leveraged to its fullest, and really to gauge and understand your effectiveness and your efficiencies where you are lacking those efficiencies. So MES, I think it drives itself. If you're really wanting to understand the $1 million investments that you made in your capital equipment, MES is something that I don't even think is a software. It's really an insurance policy to make sure that you're maximizing the value of the capital equipment that you guys are really investing in. ERP and MES costs are significantly less than a new $500,000 laser machine, a new $1 million 4-axis. Those are the big investments that make the CFOs a little bit nervous. The money it spends to take an ERP and the MES aspect is just the insurance to make sure you're leveraging and maximizing the value of those expenses, capital equipments that you're facing with day in and day out. Would you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add in that is that, again, I'll go back. If you can't measure something, you can't manage it. So from my positions, it's always about getting information in front of me that is accurate, that I can actually do something with. And I think what you need within your ERP and your extended manufacturing operations management, APS, MES kind of suite, is you need the foundations to provide those metrics, those key metrics in your business. We would say from a manufacturing point of view, that is my loading, my availability, my performance, my quality, right? They're metrics for me. And then you lift those up into, KPIs, things like overall labor effectiveness, overall equipment effectiveness, and total effective equipment performance, which are KPIs that, again, are broad reaching across all manufacturing. If you run those three, you drive your business on those three KPIs, and you say, my labor effectiveness this month is 60%. I want us to get to 65% in the next quarter. And I want to know the reasons how I get there. We'll tell you that. We'll say, well, these are the reasons why your 60% is not 100%. So there's the 40%. That's how much the 40% is costing you. These are the reasons and the categories why that 40% is being lost. There's 5% for this reason, there's another 2.5% for this, etc. So you can go after that from a labor point of view. If I'm a job shop, that's key for me, right? Overall labor effectiveness is where I'm at. That's the KPI I want to run. If I'm a batch production, and by that means I've got a product catalog of 200 products or something, and I'm chopping and changing, I've got a combination of labor and equipment. that I want to balance both. So I'm looking at both my overall labor effectiveness and my overall equipment effectiveness, and I'm trying to drive, and I'm just setting my targets in the business to say this is where I want to be this month, next quarter, whichever. And I know the reasons why. And if I'm a production line, which some of you might be as well, then I'm also looking at this total effective equipment performance. I've spent probably millions on production lines, putting it together. I need those assets fully utilized, running 24/7, and no waste. And I need to know why I'm using those. So giving you that foundation of the metrics to run my business is key. And then from a senior management point of view, they lift up into your objectives and key results, your OKRs that you would have as well. They just feed straight into that, and that might be, I want to improve my delivery time to our customers. We're at the moment we're doing 4 weeks. I want that to be 2 weeks across the board, and I need to understand why. So again, these are sort of foundational systems for metrics and measurement that really allow you to run your business under control.
I think that under control is the key aspect for it. So many companies that I talk to just assume that loss. It's just an assumption. It's just a cost of doing business where I have a production line or I have a resource line or I have an employee, a group that just isn't going to be maximized, and I'll have them sweeping the floor or doing some other type of training. It doesn't have to be that way. How do you maximize the output and the capabilities and the resources you have available? How do you tie that into the business that you're getting? Are you approaching the right type of business to run the right type of lines? Are you pricing them correctly? Am I winning the right deals? Am I losing deals because it is taking me 4 weeks and I want to get to 2 weeks? Am I losing it because I have an assumed margin that is higher than it should be because it's not taking me 10 hours, it's taking me 8 hours, but I don't know this because I'm not tracking data outside of a time card that somebody is manually filling in and is at best a directional answer on how long it takes rather than an accurate answer around how long it takes. So a lot of that costing is really the foundation of the entire business of what type of customers should I get? What type of product line should I invest in? What type of business should I win for my company to be profitable? And a lot of companies without this data are struggling with that. Again, just kind of getting directional answers and hoping the bank account is bigger at the end of the month than when they started. So Mark, thank you so much for that. The next topic that we have is really related to some of the AI stuff. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this as well, because AI is absolutely fascinating. I think there's been about 1.5 million webinars and talking points around AI across the industry over the past year or so. But AI is something that ECI is investing in heavily. And from my viewpoint, we're really doing it in 2 buckets of ways. Number one, how do I remove or mitigate manual tasks? Traditionally manual data entry. So one of the things that we released to the marketplace late last year in the 4th quarter of our Job Boss Squared product for our job shops is our AI bomb builder. And what that was is allowed us to take an image of a bill of material and be able to input it directly into the ERP rather than what most of our customers had been historically doing, and that is manual data entry. I've got a spreadsheet list, I've got a bubble drawing, I've got something, and I'm going to type that out. It's going to take me 5, 10, 20 minutes, hours, days in some of the more complicated assemblies. That is not only costing you time, it's costing you the risk of those errors that we talked about at the very beginning. What happens if I fat finger it and put in 10 instead of 1? How am I catching those? So the AI tool is allowing us to streamline and minimize a lot of those manual errors, but also create a lot more velocity when it comes to somebody that is right now maybe putting in 10, 20, 30 materials a day. Instead of that being someone's sole job, they're using the AI tool to be able to drive that, fix and put some manual human touch onto that to make sure that it's working right, but saving them so much time. We're building out a similar tool around AP invoices. So again, getting the invoices from your vendors, I'm manually typing those out in a lot of cases. An AP AI tool will be able to bring those in automatically and do this three-step match verification where I'm taking that original purchase order. I'm taking that receipt of me receiving that purchase order into inventory or into WIP, and then I'm taking that purchase order, applying that, making sure it matches, and creating, again, that velocity. I was talking to a customer a couple of months ago, and his jaw just dropped. He's like, we have to input like 50 invoices a day. Are you telling me you're building a tool that can automate that? I'm like, yeah, it's coming this year. And they were pretty excited about that. It's going to save them a lot of time and not even including some of the manual errors that they're going to be running into. So that's kind of the first bucket. And an area that we're focusing on is how do I mitigate or manage or remove a lot of the manual, repetitive, redundant tasks that a lot of manufacturers are struggling with. The other piece is really related to answering questions. And I break this into two sides. Number one, answering questions on easy, how to use the ERP better, how to use software better. We're going to be releasing a chat bot later this year that really brings support, guidance, help guides, everything into one so that you can have a normal conversation with an AI chatbot to say, hey, how do I get this out of my ERP system? The second caveat around that is really answering questions about your business that the ERP system can handle to say, hey, show me the most 5 at-risk orders that are due late that I need to be paying attention to. Show me my 3 most profitable customers over the past 6 months. Show me this question that I have, show me the answer to that. And that's really, really exciting. That's going to take a little bit longer than the chatbot, but we're building tools internally to be able to drive that type of AI tools to be able to answer questions, not only about how to use the software and how to engage with the software better, but the questions about your business, rather than me manually running a report to dig in and dive in and find the answer. How can I ask a simple question of an AI tool and be able to get that answer right there, and then the proof of a report backing it up? So those are kind of the two sections that we're focusing on: answering questions and really mitigating or minimizing those redundant data entry or redundant tasks. Mark, what are you guys seeing and kind of looking at from an AI perspective on your side of the fence?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and a very few minutes that we have left, it's, AI has turned the world on its head. Everybody's thinking differently about how we can provide this, and it creates a huge amount of efficiencies. Obviously, it all starts with a huge amount of data that's swimming around the place. That needs to be in a state that's accurate and understood and is gathered from systems from a manufacturing point of view. We first of all want to use it from a manufacturing intelligence point of view. So, I guess old sort of existing, if you like, BI tools at the moment will provide, I can create my dashboard in certain ways, but exactly the same way, Tim, you just talked about. I don't need to do that anymore. I can ask my ChatGPT, or I can ask my engine within the application just to show me specific information, and it can go away and grab that and bring that back to me, so that I can easily consume that. I don't need to necessarily start at a very generic dashboard and then drill down into the information. I can get to the information that I need where it is. We see that there's huge possibilities beyond that. I will say, from just any production planners in the audience, we very much come from a place where we have never ever tried to replace production planners, right? I still, even with AI, don't believe that necessarily is possible. Always the case is AI is a tool that's used by us all in order to get to information faster, so we can make more intelligent decisions faster. And so we think, from a scheduling point of view, for example, it may be I want to maximize output, but actually what I want to do is I want to maximize output, but I want to do it for, let's say, in the most energy efficient way, so that I'm improving my carbon footprint that all manufacturers are going to start getting measured on, for example. So when I schedule something, I don't want to use an old machine to do it. I want to use the new machine because it can produce X amount faster, whatever. There's too many computations and variations that a production planner needs to go through in their head, and you need some help with that. So we see AI being layered on top of, for example, our scheduling application to provide those kind of insights to say, tell you what, give me the most optimized output, energy efficient plan possible. And it'll go away and automatically do that, and then you can take a decision on that. Things like that, Tim. But it's almost limitless. It's about the applications that can be applied in a particular area. But very exciting times for us all.
I like it. And we're right at time, Mark. Thank you so much. Couldn't agree more with it. We don't have time for questions, though, because we're right at the top of the hour. But please put your questions in. We promise we'll get an answer back to you. Mark, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to this group. We appreciate you joining us today. Excited about what we have coming at ECI and with MES APS. It's a powerful tool and one that we're excited to bring to the marketplace, and one that I think is going to provide a lot of value for our prospect and our customer base. Thank you all for joining. You will be receiving a copy of this recording and information on how to get in touch with me and Mark and our teams to be able to answer any subsequent questions. So thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your day.